All right, according to Verizon, it's 3 p.m. I'd like to call the Middlesex County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. At this time, Betty, could you give us roll call to establish a quorum?
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Koontz?
Here.
Mr. Mansfield?
Here.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Here.
Mr. Jesse?
Here. All right, at this time, Reginald Williams, could you lead us in prayer? And then Matt Walker, pledge allegiance to the flag.
Let us pray. Oh, gracious God, our Father, we come once again, Father, on this beautiful day you made for us. Father, as we go about doing county business, Father, be with us, strengthen us, that we can be wise at what we do, what we say, that when we leave this place, that we'll have a better understanding than when we came. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. We all do pray. Amen.
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 Would all citizens of our nation rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, first on the agenda is a consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the agenda, minutes of September 7th and regular meeting, and disbursement and payroll. Is there any correction of the consent agenda or changes? If not, do we have a roll to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A motion by John Coons. Do we have a second?
Second.
We had a motion by John Coons. We had 2 seconds, but I'm going to give it to Reggie this time. A motion and probably second. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Koontz?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield? Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion so carried. Next is public comment. At this time, you can address all your comments to the Board of Supervisors, not to the audience, and you have 3 minutes.
All right, our first person with public comment is Robert Jackson.
All right.
Robert Jackson, Urbana. Good afternoon, board members and others. I would like to speak on several issues this afternoon, but due to time constraints, the discussion on these issues is going to be very limited. First, police body cameras, also known as BWCs. Of the 95 counties in Virginia, 86 have BWCs. Of the 124 sheriff offices in Virginia, only 22 does not have BWCs. This county is one of them. Why is that? I would say it's not the cost. I don't think this county and this board would hesitate 1 minute about giving the sheriff's office the money he needs for the body cameras if he submits a budget proposal. After all, we are spending millions and millions of dollars on water and sewage. Why not spend a few thousand on BWCs? So far this year, 653 people have been killed by police. A poll taken in the U.S. have shown that most of the general public is in favor of police wearing BWCs. Also, a poll taken by police officers shown that most of them support BWCs. Recording interaction with the public is likely to minimize complaints about police officers' behavior and the unnecessary use of force because there is a record of their interaction with each other for everyone to see. Both officers and citizens may trend to be more restrained knowing that their camera is capturing their words and action. Use of BWCs provide hard video evidence of decisions made by officers in highly intense situations. The footage is extremely valuable in piecing together what actually happened. The footage BWCs help protect police officers and citizens against false accusations, claims of misconduct, or abuse. BWCs also increase transparency and accountability of officers. BWCs also increase public confidence in local policing and also reduce the number of complaints and allegations made against them. The time for BWCs is now. Second, Middlesex Water Authority. This authority was created in 2014. At that time, this county administrator said the water system would not cost taxpayers a penny. I often wonder why a water authority was created. After doing some research, I found that the authority has the power to make decisions, which means the MWA do not have to report directly to the Board of Supervisors. Now, 7 years later, we have gone from not a penny to between $25 to $29 million as of today. Taxpayers, you do not see an increase this year, but just wait until 2022. You will probably see a significant increase. I also understand now that the connection fee will probably go from $5,000 to $7,500. Now, based on the numbers of households reported and the cost per household for the water, based on the number of households reported and the cost per household for the water, something just does not add up. As taxpayers, I think we deserve some type of transparency on how our monies are being spent here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Annette Greenwood.
Annette F. Greenwood, 1750 Waresbridge Road, Churchview, Virginia. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, county personnel, good afternoon. I'm here today representing the citizens of the Middlesex County Veterans Day Committee. We would like to host the Veterans Day event, requesting the county's support also, November the 11th, 2021 at 11 a.m. at our historic courtyard. This event, of course, will be downscaled from previous events due to COVID restrictions and safeguards for all who will be attending. Please note that many citizens of Middlesex County have reached out in support of the event, thus the renewed effort to move forward. In 1991, a memorial donated by the Urbana Masonic Lodge, number 83, AF and AM, was placed in our historic courtyard. Each of us passed by it this afternoon upon entry to the courthouse. We would ask, on behalf of all the veterans and Middlesex County citizens, that you, our board, would spend time reflecting on the inscription at the base of the memorial. To them, we owe our freedom. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
That's the only two speakers I got.
That's it? All right, at this time, I'd like to close the public comment.
Oh, there's one more.
Oh, one more?
Yeah, Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hope it's okay if I approach
Right.
the public comment period. Sure. Russ Perkinson, property owner at 2847 Grace Point Road. Got some brief comments about a environmental issue or maybe management issue, so it isn't a problem. I'd like to speak in favor of what I noticed in the board package. I think the planning department is recommending DEQ review ENS erosion sediment control plans for solar farms. I think that's a very important matter, and I'd like to support if I'm understanding the planning department's recommendation properly, I'd highly support doing that. The biggest financial resource we probably have in Middlesex County are the two rivers and the bay. So I think it makes sense to do what we can to protect them. Solar farms can be an environmental problem if not managed properly to the rivers due to inadequate ENS and stormwater management is inadequate, both during construction but also for the long term. Reason why is the panels create a whole lot of impervious surface out in the area where they're located, the fields that they're in, and that channels the rainwater into the area between the rows, between the panels. So if you have a 2-inch rain event, really it amounts to the erosion capability of a 4-inch rain event when it channelizes in the middle. So we have 45 inches of annual rain a year. With the Roe Middles fields, 90 inches of concentrated flow. So it's very important to manage that. I know Essex County off Route 17 had a significant problem with a large facility went in a few years ago. And if you want to see an example of poor ENS control, you don't have to go too far. Just go between Grace Point Camp and the Pilot House and take a look at where the water line went in 4 months ago on Route 3 or 4 months ago, where there's no vegetation and evidence of erosion occurring. You know, the farmers are doing a pretty good job now. Most of them using no-till practices. So I think the onus is on urban development and other uses to try to prevent erosion sediment loss to the rivers and bay as much as possible. Again, I support the planning department's recommendation to route ENS plans for solar facilities to DEQ for their review that I presume they can do concurrent with looking at the stormwater management plan. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to close public comment. Next, constitutional officers. On page 42 to 46 is Kathy Thrift, the treasurer. And next would be B, Commissioner Revenue, May Diggs, page 47. I see May out there.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Does anyone have any questions for me?
I had one quick question, May, and it was related to, I believe it was the meals tax. No, transit and occupancy tax. The collection rate is almost perfect, but I noticed that it's the same amount almost to the penny from 21 to 2020. Is it the same one collection, or is it an aggregate of a whole bunch of small collections? Is there some way to clean up that last little bit?
It's an aggregate of small collections.
Okay, so it's a happenstance that they're close.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, otherwise, it's pretty amazing, the collection rate, so thank you for all that.
Mm-hmm.
May I just, I think it was last month that I asked about.
Mike not on.
Sorry. I think it was last month that I asked to try and understand the BEEP poll, the difference between the dollar amount and the number of businesses, and you've added that to the report. I just want to thank you for that. I think it's informative that in 2019, we had 800 businesses paying BEEP poll. In 2020, that fell to 715, so we lost 85 businesses, but it's recovered to 749 this year.
Yes, and so with the B poll, there's going to be many factors as to why a business may or may not renew for a given year. It could be based on their gross receipts, them not meeting the threshold, just any number of things. But I more than welcome you to come in and we can look through that.
I just think it's a good trend, and just for clarification, in a perfect world, does a contractor who is based out of the county, who comes into the county to work, are they supposed to register and?
Yes, so with contractors, the state requirements is that here in the county, if their gross receipts for the year are going to be over $25,000, then they're required to file for a business license here.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any more questions for me? If not, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Next, we have agency and staff report. VDOT, Ron Peaks and Lee McKnight.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Lee McKnight. I'm the new residency administrator for Saluda Residency. I'm taking over for Joyce McGowan. So I'm going to give you a quick update with what's going on in Middlesex County in terms of VDOT construction. As you may be aware, Route 17 bridge over Dragon Run is complete. We have a bridge replacement project on 625 Barracks Pond Road. That has been delayed due to steel fabrication issues currently ongoing in the world. We have various locations of paving on primary systems 33 and 3, Route 17. The 17 paving should be complete by the end of this week. That's up there by Big John's. And then we have, of course, various other secondary routes that we're paving this year. In terms of traffic engineering, we did look at we conducted a speed limit study along Route 626. That field work is complete and the data has been collected. It's being analyzed right now. And then Route 3 from the bridge to 622 is completed as well. The reduction in speed limit was not warranted based on the data collected. The 85th percentile was 59 miles per hour to 58 miles per hour. In terms of maintenance, VDOT, we're mowing the secondary roads currently. That's underway. The primary mowing is to begin this week. I know that's been something that people have been looking for. Route 3, pruning and brush removal in various locations, sweeping countywide, litter removal as part of the mowing operations as well. And I think that's all I have. I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions?
I got one question. On secondary roads, how wide is it supposed to be?
Well, it depends on the secondary road, but I mean, prescriptive easements are 30 feet typically.
That's from ditch to ditch?
It varies, but
30
yeah, that's pretty much the minimum.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Just so it doesn't get lost in between transitions, in Deltaville, you may be aware that there are very many roadside drains that have collapsed and are failing, and I think that it didn't make sense to do the repairs until after the water system was in.
Okay.
But that date is approaching. I just want to keep that front and center.
Okay, these are the drop inlets?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lee, you mentioned the delay in the Barracks Pond Bridge. Any guess at when that's going to be done?
Yeah, I was hesitant to give a date just because of the uncertainty. I'm hoping by December, but it's dependent on the steel. And right now, it's just so unpredictable with
Right.
what's going on.
I think just for future, this report's more beneficial or helpful, even if you couch the expectation of December.
Sure.
Just throw it out there so that when I'm asked on the street, how long is this going to be, I can actually, there's nothing hidden there. I just come and straight out say, we think December, but it's a
Sure.
global steel issue. And then the study that you did, I assume, is the road along Tall Chief,
For which,
620, where is it?
yes.
Regent Road.
Okay.
Was that study conducted from where to where? Because what I'm hearing from the public that is studying this is maybe we didn't study the right part of the road.
It was amended, and Ron, I apologize, but it was amended, the sections to correct to get the correct areas of where it was supposed to be studied.
And your findings from that report, is there a way that those could make it into this report so that, again, when we're asked by constituents, we can say, here's what they found, 85 percentile was 59 miles an hour. It's not a speeding problem as much as it may be better diligence on the grasses that are growing up in certain blind corners like we've discussed. But to have those findings in this report would make it still more powerful.
Sure. We can do that.
Certainly up late. I do apologize. The request has been accurate to our traffic people. I just misstated it in the board report. But basically, dirt bridge from Route 3 from Grays Point Road all the way through Regent Road to 33.
Okay, so you went the whole loop, basically?
Yes, it's being
Okay.
reviewed.
And your data of 85th percentile being 59 miles an hour, is that a static point?
That was for
Route 3.
from the bridge
Okay.
up towards Serena.
So what,
Two different ones.
right, for Regent Road or the loop, dirt bridge in Regent, can you summarize again the findings that,
So the data has been completed, but it has not been analyzed
Got it.
yet. The study is ongoing. It's not done yet.
okay, and when do we anticipate the
About
conclusion?
30 days.
30 days?
Yeah, the traffic people actually sent field people out. They put what looks like counters, and they're actually
I saw.
combination counters and speed
Yep.
devices.
Very good.
And my understanding is they've done the field review, had the counters and speed devices out there, retrieve those, and then they feed that data in.
Perfect.
about 30 days.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else have any more questions for Lee? If not, thank you. And
Thank
welcome
you.
again. Okay. Next line, item B, school matter, Dr. Tracy Seitz.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have a couple of things in here, then I wanted to give you a couple of updates also for a couple of minutes. But first thing is an appropriation request, and I believe that is on pages 51 and 52. I'll go through the three items that are in that, see if there's questions, and then move to the next one. And so you'll see that the first is donation and special gifts. That is $2,700, and that is from the RCC Education Foundation. They had a donation that they are using to promote and support equity in dual enrollment courses. So even when our kids are in high school, whether that's at our high school or at RCC during their high school time, there's still a charge for those classes, which is $15 per credit. We recognized in Middlesex that we wanted to pick up those charges just a few years ago because we felt like it would provide more of an opportunity to students. And so RCC is also recognizing that also, so the money will come back to support those, specifically for students who are first-generation college students, students of color, students with disabilities, and students who are below poverty level. So that will offset their dual enrollment courses, or the charges for those. The second is, welcome Karen. The second is, this is year 2 of the K-12 School Innovation Grant. We received $50,000 last year for implementation, and we had to apply again for the second part of it, which we did, and we received that. And that will focus on career development, student-centered learning, workplace learning that promotes workforce needs and transition to post-secondary experiences for students. And so we're working on that. And then the last one is an albuterol grant. We are required now to have emergency albuterol on campuses for student use, not those that already have that, but for a student who may be experiencing an attack that would need that. This funding actually pays for the valved holding chambers, which is the device that the medication would go into in order for the student to use it as an inhaler. And so that will be set up at all of our schools. Any questions about those?
Anybody have any questions, Tracy? If not, do we have a motion to approve the appropriation request FY 2022-14, and then a budget transfer request 2022-03?
So moved.
A motion by John, do we have a second? Second. A motion by John, probably seconded by Pete. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Mansfield? Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion so carried.
All right, if I can have a couple of minutes, I wanted to update you on some other things that we have going on. I think you're all aware that we had put out an RFP for a master plan renovation for MHS, and so I wanted to let you know where we are in that process. It did close, or before it closed, we did hold a pre-bid meeting. We had 4 firms attend that, ask questions, and we could provide information, give a tour. We had 3 firms submit proposals. And then before we actually had interviews and presentations, one firm did reach out and acknowledge that they could not meet our needs. Specifically, they didn't have the manpower to spend the time with us to give us a substantial plan. And so we had 2 firms present to our executive team. So we had those presentations, and we're in the process now of making a decision. We plan to make a recommendation at our school board meeting on Monday evening of a firm that we choose there, but we are in that process. I did want to give you an idea of what that scope of work will include once we do make a decision. And that is, they will first collect lots of collection of data. So drawings of environmental inspections and reports, maintenance reports, any records of equipment that's been replaced. They will want to look at our master scheduling, which is current, and any future offerings we may want to propose current enrollment and enrollment projections. Then they'll conduct site visits, of course, to lay eyes on all the needs there at the high school and make sure the data that they've collected, such as some of the plan work, matches, and that they're not just working off of a plan without having seen the building and what the needs are there. They'll also look at deferred maintenance needs, associated costs with that. They will develop educational and architectural program of space needs. So what exactly we want to use that space for at the high school, because I think a lot of you were here when there were upgrades there, but upgrades are not necessarily for current time. We're looking ahead for the next 10 and 20 years and what our school needs to be there. And then they'll conduct what they call visioning meetings, and that's when multiple community members are brought in, so school board members, board of supervisors members, students, parents, community leaders, some of our philanthropic organizations in the county all come together to discuss early concept design for the high school, what they may see it as, and hear what's also needed. And then also looking at the future of our high school graduates and the skills that our students will need when they do graduate. Moves into concept development, more meetings where they come back to the executive committee and then back again to the community members of that team that's created. And so they really have drilled down to just a few concept designs, which at that point they will be able to present to our committee and to the school board. That process is about a 6-month process. So the timing for us is about right. If we can make that recommendation and get approval next week, we would want to be able to move forward with this plan and then have some real concrete design ideas by the end of the school year. Any questions about that?
Any other board members have any questions?
One more thing.
Okay.
Just because you haven't seen, another grant that I just wanted to make you aware of, that's not something that's come across as a transfer yet, but I did want to let you know the partnerships that we have with other school divisions. So Middlesex with West Point and Matthews County Public Schools, along with West Rock Corporation in West Point and RCC, partnered together for a CTE High School Innovation Grant. That's a $250,000 grant that we will be looking for implementing career pathways that combine high school, college, business, work industry, and creating plans and course opportunities for when students start school in the 9th grade that takes them through high school graduation, a year past that with industry certification and associate's degrees that lead into a workforce that they are specifically trained for. So we've been awarded the grant, had a couple of meetings to start that, so we're excited about that partnership. And I just wanted to make you, because the money piece hasn't come across here yet, West Point's the fiscal agent, but I did want to let you know, like I said, the collaboration and partnership we have there. Okay.
Anyone else have any questions?
Just one quick question on the high school project.
Yes.
The proposals that these two firms that are still in the running, are they within the budget?
That's part of what we're waiting on now. So as we go through the scope and look at if the scope meets our needs of the work, then we get to the financial piece. And they go back and then list out the hours and the time and the cost of that. So if you remember in our CIP, we budgeted $75,000 for that. We feel like it will be. We just don't have that yet. We will by Monday.
Okay.
To take it to the board.
And the board will be making a decision on that information real time, or?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I got one question about the $250,000
Yes, sir.
that surrounding counties going to come together projecting on the future of, kids going through the school system. Do we have any plan how we going to do it? Or, like now we send some to New Kent and all this kind of, we send kids to New Kent and there for career and stuff. We send some to community college. Are we going to do anything in the county? Do we need a location? Are we going to educate kids here? Are we going to send them somewhere else?
So that actually is in the works right now. If we're looking at Middlesex, West Point, Matthews, Middlesex and West Point are fairly close, and of course we're the closest to RCC, which is why we brought RCC into that together. I don't have an answer yet on what that will look like, because this is more of a planning year. It could be that some of it takes place in Middlesex, but it virtually goes out to the other schools. It may be that some of it takes place at RCC, and we could attend there, but there's a virtual component. So considering just the area of the schools that are in partnership, it will likely be it could be somewhat of a virtual component, somewhat of a face-to-face component. If we think about RCC, The welding program that we have now, West Point, Middlesex, and Matthews all participate in. And so we've already got the transportation that works for us to go to RCC for that to take place. So that is, of course, they're the college piece of it, which you wanted to bring them in, but they nicely fit for us as a place. I can't say that it will be delivered at Middlesex High School, though, if that makes
You're
sense.
just looking at, because maybe we have a building around here somewhere doing not anything with it that might be a good, source for them to come to us if we were act quick enough before we decide to do something else with the different buildings.
That's right.
So, thanks.
Any other questions?
Right. And I also like to thank the Middlesex High School administration for nominating me as the Grand Marshal of the Homecoming Parade. Everything ran smoothly, and I enjoyed it.
It did. It was good to see you. It was my granddaughter's first parade.
Oh, okay.
So we enjoyed it.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, line item C, we have social service report only on page 54 and 55. And D, planning and zoning update, Dave Kritz.
It's gonna keep going. I think it's behind this somewhere.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there, Dave.
Okay, it might be easier for you to get there than me.
Yeah.
So good afternoon, everybody. I have one item I can start going a brief discussion over before we get. Spoke with Kurt Smith with the PDC on Friday, and I know the board had a discussion last month on the Mill Creek Landing boat ramp. It appears they're going through that process of weeding out some of the applications that didn't have merit for consideration. It's my understanding that this particular application, or our application for this, still is under consideration. So we're still in the ballgame for that grant on that facility. So hopefully by next month I'll know more. I can fill you in, excuse me, a little bit better. Hopefully we'll have some kind of decision shortly on that. So I just wanted, that was a item that didn't make the written report. I just found that out Friday. So getting into the items here, the first item we have is the comprehensive plan amendment update. At our last meeting, Bud was there, the Planning Commission initiated a comprehensive plan review and update. So we could gather information from board members. This would be a good time for the board if they wanted to possibly expand some business districts, push some districts out a little bit for future land use. We'll route the comp plan to the different agencies to make sure it's compliant with all the criteria that they use for consideration for grants and that type of thing. So it's a process. I imagine it'll take the better part of the year to get it done, but this will probably be the most comprehensive one we've had for 5 to 6 years. So we'll start working on that. Of course, the CIP plan, I've sent those request forms out. All the department heads have those. Hopefully we get those back. The plan would be to have that to the Planning Commission in December so the board can take action the first part of the year, and then it's ready for your budget session. So that's the ideal timeline for that. We were able to make that this past year, which was good. That would put us with the CIP committee evaluating everything in November. The all hazard mitigation plan is real close to completion. Jackie Richards with the PDC is working on that. David Lehman and I have been the county reps helping Jackie out with that. So that's real close. That's going to be, we're going to put that out here shortly for everybody to review it. What Mr. Perkison talked about briefly during his public comment section, the county currently is kind of an unusual situation where we review the E&S component of a submitted plan for a solar facility, and DEQ reviews the stormwater. In this case, I think they'd probably prefer to do it all because there's probably things that they have better coordination within themselves. They can look at different things. They would be reviewing the E&S portion for solar facilities only. We would still retain our small sites and that type of thing. I recommend that, of course, this would take staff time off, give us additional staff time. So obviously, we recommend that we turn this over to DEQ to allow them to review our solar facilities. Just because it's involves the ordinance, I don't think we need an amendment to any of our ordinances, but I would like some type of action from the board, just okaying the fact that I am releasing this responsibility to DEQ to send it over. I guess I could have done it internally, but I'd prefer having board concurrence with it. If you guys wouldn't mind just taking quick action on it, if that would be okay.
Okay, would the board like to have a motion on that to allow the DEQ erosion settlement control for only solar facility, for let them review all that?
Solar facilities above 5 megawatts.
Correct.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by John, do we have a second?
Second.
A motion by John, properly second by Lud. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield? Mr. Jesse?
Aye, motion so carried.
One other item, if the board remembers, we had I just don't want to stay at that one particular place. The board's become familiar with a substantial accord, the 2232, 15.2, 2232. When Sun Tribe Solar submitted their special exception request and went through their process for land use approval, they never actually submitted a formal determination for the 15.2, 2232. And when they came to me and they said, we need all our land use confirmations from the county, I went through our inventory and I noticed this was never done. So the Planning Commission last month found this to be compliant with the comp plan. Of course, we're adhering to the 1,000-foot setback and all the requirements that we put in place. This is basically just a notification to the board. The board, in its ability, would have, if the Planning Commission didn't have a public hearing, would have the ability to send the Planning Commission back to have a public hearing. Well, the Planning Commission just went ahead and had the public hearing. So this went through a public process, and this is done. It's basically just a transmission of the facts to the board to let them know that this was compliant with the comp plan. As I said, the board's already approved this special exception anyway, so it's just a matter of housekeeping, so to speak.
Okay.
So I believe that concludes everything. If anybody has any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them.
Anybody have any more questions for Dave? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Broadband Authority, Kevin Gentry, update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll give you a brief update on our four-county grant, which was our previous year's grant submission that we won. What they call the walkout is complete in all of the counties. Right now, there are no delays, no material shortages to speak of. We've had good weather. At the risk of overpromising and under-delivering, we're looking at being connected with some of our communities at least as early as the first quarter of 2022. So that's good news and full speed ahead on that project. As you know, on September 14th, we submitted our current proposal to VATI to work with All Points Broadband and Dominion Energy to run approximately 138 miles of fiber broadband to areas of the county where there is no service. This ambitious project with the board, which the board generously funded, would bring us one step closer to universal coverage in Middlesex County. So one of the things we're working on right now is an outreach program to determine exactly where the unserved are. We had a very good idea of it, but as you start to get into the process, invariably you encounter challenges to the grant, which make you really drill down as to where there is and is not service. So as some of you may have seen, we have a social media campaign that's out there. It's a very short survey that if folks want to say, I don't have service and this is my location, we encourage everybody to go to that website and fill that out. We understand that some people don't have even smartphones and don't have access to the internet. So we've done some outreach with our local libraries so that if someone would like to come and take the survey, the staff has been briefed on how to get to that website and will assist patrons getting there. Shared that information with Tracy Seitz, our superintendent, our school superintendent, and that evening she had sent it out to everybody in the school system. So Lud had a very good suggestion, Supervisor Kimbrough, that we reach out to faith leaders, and we've done some of that so that we can put that into inserts in the church bulletin and reach out to folks and have those leaders work with their parishioners to perhaps get them signed up at the church or point them in the direction of those resources like our public libraries. Are there any questions on the VATI grant? Or John, did you have any comments that you wanted to add? The last thing I would mention is I had brought up earlier about the Line Extension Customer Assistance Program, which is LECAP is the acronym. I had mentioned it before. It's still not quite finalized, but it's about a $16 million, it is a $16 million project, and it would support the extension of existing broadband broadband networks to low to moderate income residents. So imagine a long driveway scenario where you want to get connected. This would offset that cost. The way that would work is the customer would work with the ISP, but the county and specifically the Broadband Authority plan to stay in contact with our incumbent providers to make sure that we are as helpful as we can be to make sure that those connections get made and we get that word out. So I'll have more to talk about that as the guidelines get finalized, but they're very close to being finalized so that people can take advantage of that program. And that's all I have.
All right, anybody else have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the one idea I think I would propose, Kevin, to the Broadband Authority is something that the Water Authority did recently and consistently. We found one of the best methods of reaching people in the rural areas especially is direct mailing. Just mail them a postcard and continue to do so until you get a response.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
All right, thank you very
Kevin.
much.
Take care. Next, we have our regular items, agenda items, citizens appointment, Betty Muncy.
There is only one application being brought to you today from William Widhelm, who has asked to be appointed to the Board of Equalization from the Pine Top District. Yes, from the Pine Top District.
All right, do we have a motion to approve? Wilhelm?
So moved.
Have a motion by Lud, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Lud, probably second by Reggie. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Kuntz?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield? Aye. Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion, so carried. Matt Walker, VACO voting credentials.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's that time of year again. I was on the phone with Dean Lynch, the Director of the Virginia Association of Counties, last week, and he assures me the plan is to move forward with the annual conference. So with that and the request from VACO for voting credentials of our delegates, the board would need to take action on voting credentials this evening, sir.
All right, at this time, do we have a motion to approve the voting credentials for the VACO convention? Nobody?
I'm not sure if I can make the motion since I'm the backup.
Right, and I'm yeah.
So moved.
We have a motion by John, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by John, second by Pete. Motion been probably second. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield? Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion so carried. Next, we have the 2020 census redistricting discussion. Matt Walker.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we finally got the census data in from the census folks. Of course, the board may remember the data was delayed substantially along with some of the collections due to the COVID pandemic. But the data actually was made available to staff on September the 15th. And I've got good news and bad news. The good news is, relatively speaking, Middlesex County did not lose as many population as we had perhaps expected. Our population, according to this last census, is 10,625. The bad news is, where we retained it is going to probably cause us to have to redistrict. Not probably, it is going to cause us to redistrict. This is kind of a busy table, and Mr. Chairman, I'll walk you through it very quickly and then, of course, answer any questions you have. But at the end of this long, drawn-out discussion, I'm going to recommend the board hold a work session to discuss redistricting and review options with myself and Glenn Nix, our GIS technician. Because in real time, you can look at census blocks, move census blocks, and recombine those census blocks into election districts. And I believe, if my memory serves, last time the board went through this in 2011, that's how y'all handled it then. This is my third redistricting in my young, tender career. It's always a joy, but fundamentally, the main reason the board will need to redistrict are these deviation percentages. Pine Top grew by 11 people total, and Harmony Village shrank by 125 total. That makes Harmony Village deviation from the highest over the allowed threshold. In a sense, you're trying to achieve an average district size of 2125, and Pine Top is 6.45% over, and Harmony Village is 5.46 under. That deviation is larger than 10%. So the ideal would be to get all of our districts under 5% in order to comply with the one person, one vote standard that the Supreme Court set for election districts. As an example, our 2010 districts looked like this. So you see all of the deviations were well within the 5% range. That's the short and skinny of our redistricting discussions. I can go into a lot more depth if you'd like, Mr. Chairman, but at your seats today, you will find this local guide or guide to local redistricting prepared for counties and state officials from the Virginia Division of Legislative Services. It's 54 pages chock full of goodness and a little bit of ambiguity to make it interesting. I would encourage y'all to look through that before the work session and ask any questions you have of staff on some of the fundamentals of it. There have been substantial changes to elections in this past General Assembly, most of which are dealing with precincts and how they're arranged and set up. We are monitoring that pretty close. It's my understanding, talking with our county attorney and other county attorneys in the region, there's a lot of chatter on their live wire or whatever y'all call that about how everyone is scrambling for redistricting. Now, for the public here tonight, I should lead with this. This will not affect this election. In fact, it's against the law for it even to affect this election. It's too close to it. So the board would need to establish these districts for the next election. And based on my understanding of where all of our candidates live, the amount of changes to the election districts will probably be very marginal. At least from staff's opinion, it won't affect any of our current candidates on the school board office or the Board of Supervisors or the challengers running for those positions. Any questions?
All right. Anybody have any question for Matt? All right. Thanks for that information.
Okay. And I would recommend the board schedule a work session early November, late October to discuss. Y'all know our GIS technician, Glenn Nix. He's already been cranking out options and examples and maneuvering the numbers. But I'll just close with this. Essentially, we have to move some people out of Pine Top to make it slightly smaller. The only district to move them to is Hartfield, which Hartfield's large already. We're going to have to move some of that population into Harmony Village. And it could stop there, or y'all can continue to move blocks here and there to make the necessary adjustments.
Matt, just a quick question. Does that end up looking like Hartfield's moving slightly east and Harmony Village is moving slightly east?
Correct. And I'm open for dates and when you may want to have that work session.
You said between late October and November, sometime in November?
Yes, sir.
Can we do it remotely?
I wouldn't recommend it. I think being in the room and looking in real time as the blocks move would be much more to the board's liking. But if you had to, I mean, that's up to the board and board chair.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at some dates.
The 29th of October, 4th of November, and the Oyster Festival is the 5th, so you've got a couple of days there, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
I mean, if you wanted to have something next week, we probably could. I do have a question into the Division of Legislative Services regarding some of the adjustments that were made for our local regional jail population that are required by law. I don't think anything that would stand in the way of proceeding at this time.
What about October the 29th, which is a Friday? I cannot. Okay, that's not a good date. All right.
The fourth works for me, 4th or 5th,
November the 4th,
yeah.
which is a Thursday. All right. How's November the 4th works with everyone?
May I ask a question first? Why are we pushing this so soon?
That's a very good question, Pete.
It's required by law.
Even though we got the data late, September 15th, which is really late, there's a Virginia statute that says we have to have our redistricting completed and submitted to the AG for review by December 31st of this year. And I had a conversation with Keith Hodges. There's nothing on the horizon relieving us from that requirement. However, I discussed that with the Virginia Association of Counties, and they sent me 2 examples of 2 different counties coming at this totally different ways. One county is strictly adhering to the statute, and they're going to have their local election districts established and submitted to the AG's office by December 31st. The other's basically saying, we're going to wait on the state and see what they do, and we'll start our process when y'all finish. The county that did that's a large Northern Virginia county. I don't think they're going to get in trouble for that decision, but we're a small Virginia county with a population of a population decrease of 300. I don't know if we would get a same pass.
November 4th works for me, Mr. Chair.
All right. November 4th, you flexible? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think we got a majority of people be here for November 4th. We got to get a time.
Sorry, we're just discussing if that's going to be sufficient time. The main concern is that because of the change in the laws, not only do we have a very short period of time to do this, but we also have to get it to the Attorney General's office in sufficient time for approval and if any changes. So you're saying November 4th. Is that?
I mean, ideally, we would need enough time to use the ordinance, adjust the districts, and then have the hearing for the ordinance on December, at the December meeting.
At the December meeting, okay.
Reggie, November
So
4th, good with you? Okay, all right.
let's start early. 9 o'clock in the morning, would that work?
I guess earlier is better, I guess.
Yep.
All right. Well, what time you get Reggie off the bus?
I'm good.
You good? Okay, all right. All right, so it's 9 a.m., November 4th.
When
We'll
we
see you
when
bright
we had
and
a
early.
meeting when we had a meeting like this, to who does it fall to send a calendar invite to everybody?
We'll have Susan send out the calendar.
Okay,
everybody.
so I'll just not add something. Thank
That's
you.
fine.
All right, that's it for you, Matt, on that one?
That's it for that.
All right, now we got the 911 radio project amendment to finance.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we've been approached by TD Equipment that they are requesting us amend the lease agreement so we can take refund of an amount of monies that they've been holding in escrow. When we originally financed the radio system, we also financed the amount of money to pay for the maintenance program and all of the software upgrades that would be needed on an annual basis to the radio system. And that money was held in escrow and paid out over the course of the period of the loan. TD Equipment's asked for us to take possession of those funds and eliminate the escrow account. And what you have in your packet is the amendment to that lease to facilitate that. And I've asked Anne Marie to prepare a set-aside reserve for those monies, so those monies can complete the maintenance and the software upgrades as was planned when we financed the system. Anne Marie, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
So what are you asking for the board right now?
I think they are requesting that we
There's three
authorize
action
and
items.
execute this amendment.
Yeah, there's 3 action items in there. The one is the approval of the commitment resolution.
Okay.
And that's where we're going to reserve that money that they're returning to us so that we can pay the maintenance and software updates for the years 4 through 10. But the other 2 items are the authorizations for the chairman the chairman needs to sign Exhibit F in the certificate of the lease and the Exhibit A. So those are just amendments to the original lease agreement that y'all made back in 2016.
All right, so at that time, do we have a motion to authorize the lease agreement?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Reggie. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Reggie, probably second by John. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Mr. Mansfield?
Aye.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Coons?
All right.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye, motion so carried. All right, next is administrator update, surplus item. Anne Marie.
This is a typical, when we come up with surplus items, we ask the board to authorize us to dispose of it. We have 2 items. One is a boat trailer that the sheriff's department has been using. They have replaced it with one that actually fits their boat. This is a homemade boat trailer that had limited value, and they asked that we go ahead and try to sell this on Gov Deals. The second item is the old AS400, it's called the AS400, but it's also called the I-Series, which we purchased back in 2015. We replaced it this year. This particular piece of equipment has no value to us, and a proper technology company can take that and properly dispose of the interior, and that's Stonewall Technologies had previously approached the county to dispose of that. So at this time, we request those 2 items to be declared surplus and staff to dispose of them as appropriate.
All right, do we have a motion for the surplus item?
So moved.
Motion by John, probably second by Pete. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield? Mr. Jesse?
Aye, motion so carried. Next, CCOC project update. Anne Marie.
In your packet is an update. I don't have anything to add to that. It's simply saying that the project at the CCOC is going as planned, and we will be having, that's all I have. It'll be going as planned.
Okay,
No action required.
all righty. County attorney update.
Sorry, it threw me off. I was expecting more on the administrator update. No, I except to stress what Matt already said about the redistricting, and we're under a tight deadline, but I think we'll get it done and get that submitted, and that'll be a big to-do off the list, but nothing else at this time, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have unfinished business and new business. Any board member have any unfinished business? If not, any new business? No. Okay.
I just have one small item. Well, I shouldn't call it small. working in conjunction with the Sheriff's Office, the Department of Social Services, and some private entities in the region and throughout the country, we've been working in a group we've been calling We Are Not Alone, focusing our attention on mental health issues. As we come out of COVID, the mental health issues that were always here in our county and in all counties, they're still here and maybe even exacerbated is probably what our Department of Social Services is telling us in the report and has been since the beginning of COVID. We are hosting a seminar January 26th at St. Clair Walker. And Matt, I sent you the email. Do you think you could pull it up and put it on the screen? There's just a brief flyer. I just want to call attention to it because a lot of our county employees and social services and the Sheriff's Department, Community Service Board, they've all been pitching in sort of overtime hours to put this together. It's going to generate continuing education credits, both for law enforcement that might attend from all over the region, as well as social services employees, social servants. But the idea is we're going to have a presenter that's coming and talking to not just first responders, but the eventual responders and the people that are involved with people with mental health issues well in advance of the events that might hit the newspaper, those moments that are most important. So this is a training. It's open to everyone. It's free. But the real intent is to bring in a lot of our county employees, in particular in the EMT line of work, law enforcement, social services, CSB, Department of Health. They are all touching this aspect of our world, and the more opportunities there are for training here locally, the more we can bring attention to this issue and know that our people are aware of the latest and greatest research on best practices. The email was just half an hour ago, Matt.
It's uploading.
Sorry, I should have given you more a notice.
I blame our IT director. But it's getting there.
I think we're okay to move on if there's other things, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to call attention that is coming on January 26th.
All right, okay. Next, we go matter presented by the board. I'll start down with Lud.
Just give you an update to let you know that the sewer study project marches on. The topping engineering work that's been developed by Timmons is in discussions with HRSD. HRSD is still evaluating some of the concepts that we've put forth to reduce our capital cost. And they have a meeting coming up on the 25th where they will evaluate our recommendations and hopefully give us a green light for finishing the topping engineering so that we can then go out to bids for topping. And at the same time, they're working on the preliminary engineering review for Deltaville. As you know, the HRSD requires that anybody that is on sewer must be on central water. And we've had a lot of dynamics in water subscription. We're up to, I think, over 700 subscribers now. So there's been the influx of several neighborhoods all at once that have been added to the water distribution network, which opens the door to the possibility of sewer to those networks. And so it's a bit of a circular problem for them to do the preliminary engineering because they need to incorporate all of the water distribution. So that's currently being revised, and we will keep you updated, but it's marching on as quickly as it can.
So as it runs through, as you say, if you don't have water, you can't have sewer then.
Because HRSD won't allow that. They require that you have a water meter so that they are metering the amount of water.
So they can regulate it.
That's right.
Okay. Pete, you have anything? Matter presented to the board?
No, I'm gonna.
All right, John?
Nothing at this time, thanks.
Reggie?
A couple of things. I've been getting a lot of calls about broadband, and they worried about the local surcharge. have been going up in the last couple of months, as well as the communication and sales taxes. And they don't understand why the bill is like going up about $6, $7, and they don't fully understand, so they've been talking about that. The second thing is that also about the water, we look like we got a lot of things going on with the water itself, and it seems like the price had already increased up to $7,500. I would like for the Water Authority to revisit that. And some of them that I have heard and I have talked to, regardless of how much communication had been put out at first, it wasn't enough because a lot of people are not aware of it. It seems like some want to tie on to it now, but in the way that we are communicating, and it just, one thing popped in my mind, like Lud said, if they want sewer and they don't have water, then all of a sudden you got to sign on the water, so you roughly talking $7,500. From my understanding, whether you paid up front or whether you have not finished paying, they have not put the meters in yet. From my understanding, if they have not put the meters in yet, and your guy next door have not put the meters in yet, and they paid $5,000, I'm wondering why that guy a possibility have to pay $7,500. I understand about the model that was made at first. I'm just getting some that, coming to me, and every time I see somebody, I would ask them in the district that I'm in, Hamlin Village. I say the pipeline is going down the road. How come you all haven't hooked up? It was $5,000. So all of a sudden, and where's the pipeline going? I feel that regardless of what we are saying, that I think the Water Authority done a beautiful job. They done a beautiful job in what they was doing and what they is doing. We talk about growth and all these kind of things. I got you. But sometimes we got to look at the little small things, that the reason why things happen and justification why we do things. So what I'm saying is that my personal opinion, and I'll also be mentioned to Craig again, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, and I did talk to Matt about it, that if they have done anything that putting the meter down, because from the meter, I'm getting understanding now, from the meter down, whoever hooks up gonna have to pay a plumber or pay somebody to hook it up to the house. If the meters have not been installed, you're charging someone $5,000 as a county. Let's forget about the Water Authority. You can charge somebody else $7,500. And guess what? These ones that want to hook up maybe just can't afford it. We had a pandemic for 2 years. So evidently when the wheels really started rolling, are we still going to be fixed? Is somebody going to get upset that said they paid yesterday and you can pay tomorrow? It's not fair to me. Probably the ones that really got it are the ones who really needed it. So all of a sudden, sometime we got to look at things, in my opinion, a little bit different. I'm not going to get into the model. We make great plans. The water's going in. We're going to start putting water up in November sometime. I'm just asking for some type of solution that we can crawl out one more time and give them a shot that, hey, it's $5,000. We're not going to credit it. You get the money, something like that. But that's all I got. But I have been getting a lot of calls, and some of them didn't even understand, exactly what was going on. Some of them just scared. You just want to do it. That's about it.
So thank you. I would have, as you know, the Oyster Festival, they're going to have it again this year. And I am on that foundation board. And, sometimes you have mixed feelings because you have a lot of nonprofits that some of them are not coming because, some of the numbers and different things like that. So we see how things go, but I will have that meeting Thursday. And as of right now, they're still having it, they're still planning it, not unless something else comes in and say, hey, you can't have it, but right now, they're gonna have it. And I know some of the numbers are still going up, so, you can't have a big festival without numbers moving in or moving out, so I leave it at that. Okay. Next, we would have closed session.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just for the public's information, we will not be taking any action at the close of the at the end of the closed session. And so we'll just automatically, come back out, we'll go into the recess until the 7 o'clock meeting. So
right.
just to let everyone know that. So with I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, we need a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A3 and A8. This is for the purpose of discussion and consideration of the acquisition of real property for a public purpose where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position and/or negotiating strategy of the Board of Supervisors, and for the specific consultation with legal counsel employed and retained by the board regarding specific legal matters related to the acquisition of said real property for the said real public purpose.
All right, do we have that motion?
So move.
We have that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion been properly second. At this time, roll call.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Coons?
Aye.
Mr. Mansfield? Mr. Kimbrough?
Aye.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye. Motion's okay. So now we need to,
We can either go downstairs, or since we're not going to take any action and we'll go directly into recess, we can stay here and ask the public to leave. We can go downstairs.
all right, well, I guess you want to, well, because we're not going to have anything after that, so.
No, we're going to come back and go straight into recess.
Okay, well, if that's the case, if the public could leave at this time, we're just going to discuss and nothing else going to come out of it?